Imagine a tsunami, a colossal wall of water, crashing through a city, sweeping everything away. Now, imagine that tsunami isn't water. It's a 25-foot-high wave of thick, sticky, dark brown molasses, moving at 35 miles per hour. This isn't a scene from a bizarre horror movie. This was the terrifying reality for the people of Boston on January 15, 1919, a day when a sweet treat became a deadly weapon. In one of the strangest and most tragic disasters in American history, Boston's North End in the winter of 1919 was a bustling, crowded neighborhood. Tenements and warehouses were packed tightly together, with families going about their daily lives under the shadow of the elevated train tracks. But looming over it all was something else, a monstrous steel tank, 50 feet tall and 90 feet wide. It belonged to the Purity Distilling Company, a subsidiary of United States Industrial Alcohol, and it held a staggering 2.3 million gallons of crude molasses, waiting to be fermented into industrial alcohol for munitions. This tank was, in essence, a ticking time bomb. It had been constructed hastily, and from the beginning, it was structurally unsound. Residents complained that it groaned and shuddered, even on calm days. Molasses constantly oozed from its poorly riveted seams. Local children would collect the sweet drippings in cans, a small treat in a poor neighborhood. The company knew the tank was leaking. Their solution: they painted it brown, a crude attempt to hide the sticky evidence from public view. But the real danger was building inside. January 15, 1919, was unseasonably warm. After a bitter cold snap, the temperature shot up to over 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside the tank, the cold molasses began to warm and ferment, producing carbon dioxide gas. The pressure inside the steel behemoth was building, pushing against the already weak and stressed metal. The groans grew louder. The structure was at its breaking point. Just after noon, it happened. Witnesses reported a sound like thunder, followed by a rapid-fire succession of pops, like a machine gun, as the steel rivets shot out of the tank's walls. Then, an apocalyptic roar. The massive tank didn't just leak, it exploded. The entire structure ripped apart with unimaginable force. Heavy steel plates, weighing tons, were launched through the air like shrapnel, slicing through the supports of the elevated railway track above and demolishing nearby buildings. And then came the wave. 2.3 million gallons of molasses, a dark, viscous tide, unleashed upon the North End. It surged through the streets at an estimated 35 miles per hour, a 25-foot-high wall of death. The force was immense. It lifted a freight train car clean off its tracks. It smashed into a firehouse with such power that the entire building was pushed off its foundation and collapsed. Buildings were crushed, reduced to splinters and rubble. Trucks were overturned and swept away. For the people and animals caught in its path, there was no escape. The wave was too fast, and its substance was too thick. Horses from a nearby stable were engulfed and drowned in the sticky morass. People were knocked off their feet and sucked under. The thick, gooey liquid filled their lungs, and the sheer weight and pressure of the wave crushed them against debris. The initial chaos was terrifying, a scene of complete and utter pandemonium. As the wave lost momentum, a new horror began. The molasses settled, coating the neighborhood in a waist-deep, glue-like trap. The cold air began to thicken it further. Rescuers, including over 100 sailors from the nearby USS Nantucket, rushed to the scene but found themselves fighting the molasses itself. Every step was a struggle, their boots getting stuck as if in quicksand. They were covered head to toe in the dark, sticky ooze, making it nearly impossible to work. They heard faint cries for help coming from under the wreckage and the hardening molasses. But reaching the victims was a desperate slow-motion race against time. The scene was devastating. In the end, 21 people lost their lives, and over 150 were seriously injured. It was a tragedy born from something utterly mundane. In the aftermath, the question was, how could this happen? The company, United States Industrial Alcohol, tried to deflect blame. They claimed the tank had been sabotaged by anarchists, a common fear at the time. But the science and the evidence told a different story. Investigators and expert engineers were brought in for what became one of the first major class-action lawsuits in Massachusetts history. They proved that molasses is a non-Newtonian fluid. Unlike water, it gets thicker and more resistant the faster you try to move through it, which is why it was so difficult to escape from. Most importantly, the investigation revealed the undeniable truth. The tank was a disaster waiting to happen. It was built with steel that was too thin, it hadn't been properly tested, and it was riddled with structural flaws that the company had known about and ignored. After a lengthy trial, the company was found liable and forced to pay damages to the victims and their families. The cleanup of the Great Molasses Flood was a monumental task. It took over 80,000 man-hours to chip, scrape, and wash away the sticky residue. Fireboats were brought in to pump salt water from the harbor to spray down the streets, which were then covered in sand. For weeks, everything in Boston was sticky. The molasses was tracked all over the city on people's shoes, into streetcars, homes, and businesses. The entire harbor was stained brown for months. Today, the North End is a vibrant part of Boston, and most physical traces of the disaster are gone. But a strange legend persists. A piece of local folklore says that on hot summer days when the sun beats down on the old streets, a faint sweet smell of molasses still rises from the pavement, ghostly reminder of the day a sweet tsunami brought tragedy to the heart of a city. Thanks for watching. If you found this piece of strange history as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the forgotten corners of the past. See you next time.